Welcome. 372 pages. We'll never get back. I am Michael J. Nelson, joined by Connor Listoka. This is, of course, the book club where we read through books that we are probably not going to like. And we're on a new one. We're so excited. We also watch movies that we're almost certain not to like. And I don't want to spoil that, but that's coming up in a little bit. Connor, how you doing? The post-Willow universe we're living in.
We are now, we're now firmly ensconced in the WillowVerse. And what better way to prepare for the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, than to thoroughly immerse yourself in a third-tier fantasy world to be able to discuss around the table with all the relatives and loved ones who I'm sure will also have just as much to contribute to the discussion of the WillowVerse.
That's not going to happen, obviously, but I am surprised that there are people holding the torch of Willowness, and we'll get to that in a moment. Just an announcement that all the departments are in place for this episode. So, we have dumb sentences, we have listener mail. What else do we have? We have FanFic.
FanFic. We have real or FanFic. I put out the call for FanFic last night, and people more than stepped up. So we had an abundance to choose from. Fantastic.
So let's get into it. In order to understand this book, written by, is it Chris Claremont?
Chris Claremont and some
George
guy.
Lucas. Yeah. We have to go back to the beginning and the source material, which is the 1995 film Willow, which Connor and I both just watched. So we're going to kick it off.
1988, right? I think the book is 95.
Sorry, yes, that's right. You are 100% right. Willow. So let's dive in.
Well, yeah, you watched it over the weekend, and I just, on a peaceful Sunday evening, I started getting emails from you full of rage, demanding that I reimburse you for the $3.99 you had spent to rent it on demand. So I was sitting there, with
I was amused to see that you did, as though I got to start my collection agency back up again and get money from people, because it worked.
But yeah, I had watched it like a week before. It was something that I guess Lauren's family, they had a Betamax copy of Willow that they used to watch. It was that in Spaceballs in her family, so she was sort of revisiting this nostalgic thing. She posted a Instagram story that we were watching it without any context about why we were watching it. So she went to work the next day, and her coworkers started asking her like, "Oh, you were watching Willow?" And I was like, "Did you tell them why?" She's like, "Well, we didn't really get into it." I'm like, "You need to." It's like posting that you were like at a cockfight, and then they're like, "You were at a cockfight last night?" It's like, "Well, sure, but I didn't tell them we were there to like a undercover sting at this cockfighting operation."
Yeah, I'm writing for Sports Illustrated an expose.
Yeah.
It's like when I used to, I think in the early days of Riff Tracks, we would just get the discs and we would go to a video store, get the DVDs, and put a big stack of garbage up there. And the person, I always felt the need to stammer my way through. It's a thing I'm doing. I'm kind of making fun of these, and it was always like, "Sir, I don't have any. You watch what you want." No, seriously, you must believe me. I'm not buying these things. But yeah, so I watched Willow. I wanted to also send a letter along to. I think I got it through my Xfinity cable. Like, look, right. I have to watch this.
Right. There's no incognito mode for on-demand viewing, so your recommendations are eternally screwed.
Yes, strike this data collection from your note, from your record of me, please. But man, the reason that I remembered nothing about Willow from my first viewing of it in glorious 70 millimeter is because it is a very forgettable sword and sorcery movie with very poor action set pieces, and it's a little bit confusing. Even it's not shot in a way that is very appealing to me. That's my general take on it. Your thoughts?
My general take, I was watching it, and my general take was this is way better than Krull, which was like probably came out 2 years before it and sort of set a baseline for 80s fantasy. And we did Krull as a live show at Riff Tracks like 2 years ago probably. And I just remember watching it and being like, this is pretty cheap. Like, they got to the end and there was like that final monster, but it was always like way off in the distance, not really shot for too long. And so Willow had a bunch of, green screened effects of monsters that were, not convincing. You could tell that they were, not inhabiting the same plane as our heroes. But in my mind, at least, I don't know. I thought it was better. It was more likable than Krull. So, do with that information what you will.
Well, I compared it to something even older than that, and I would say unfavorably, Jack the Giant Killer.
Oh, wow.
And the effects in that, which we had done for Rift Tracks a number of years ago. I don't think that the effects improved very much at all.
No, all the things sort of had that halo around them.
The brownies were terrible. I mean, we'll get to them in a minute, but I mean, just from effects-wise,
yeah,
they always had that tearing along the edges of their green screen crap.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and then the claymation creature at the end was, I mean, that was pretty much like the Cyclops and Jack the Giant Killer.
Yeah, really. Yeah, you just was missing someone seizing a bone, which we'll get to that in the first 5 pages of Shadow Moon. But but yeah, the other thing that stood out, mainly was obviously they wanted kids to like this movie, but they had so many essentially like Gilligan Island cutaway gags, or just essentially like, I am not going in there. I am not going in there. Boing, cut to him like walking through the cave in terror. So that was, that was the first, half of the movie essentially was that I don't know. It wouldn't be uncharitable to say hideous guy who's like the Willow's adversary in the community, like had about a dozen of those gags.
The guy rocking he wasn't even doing the comb over. He had like the straggly hair,
fully
and
bald with the fringe and the
Yeah. Oof. Let's talk about Warwick Davis's acting, because I want to tread carefully.
Okay.
But no, I don't want to tread carefully. He sucked.
Wow. I don't bear him any ill will. He was on.
No, neither do I.
He was on a Ricky Gervais show that was really funny that never really got any attention, where he essentially played the David Brent role, the Larry David sort of heightened version of himself.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think he was that bad in Willow. He became Willow. Like,
well, people can direct all their Willow hate to me then, because I was much more sour on this film than evidently than you were. But yeah, I just thought then also just the elements that were so obviously just a pastiche of Lord of the Rings.
Oh man,
and to the point where, come on, this is thievery.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. The reluctant, Hobbit type of person who is, forced to leave their pastoral home to, go on a quest unwillingly. And then the Mad Mardigan, character who is, since George Lucas was involved, it was impossible not to look at Han Solo and just be like, oh, so that exact thing. Like he even falls in love with a princess at some point in time.
Yeah, it's all very, very derivative. But I also just found the plot, like the evil person, mm-hmm. You could not have that. That was just like a rubber stamp. Evil witch lady,
right,
who cackles and orders people around.
Right, has no real goal other than just being evil in general.
And I developed pretty early on my impression of every one of the bad guys who are always, cloaked enough where you can't really see faces or masks, and are just, in black and are large. And they all, there's a lot of, rutabaga sassafras, a lot of them going, oh, rah, rah. But they all had the exact voice, like, they're over there, get them, go, yes, I see them, move that way. And it never changed. There was not a guy who was like, it would be ever so nice if you all dashed off that way and got those chaps. It was just that one voice through the whole thing.
My favorite line of the movie was towards the end, I believe, when they were Willow was gonna give them his master plan to, like, I think trick them into thinking they were gone, which relied on his knowledge of gophers. And I think Mad Mardigan, Val Kilmer, said something along the lines of, "Willow, this is battle, not agriculture." That was my favorite explicitly laid out line to the 8-year-olds in the audience, I guess.
That's that movie's equivalent of, damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not an elevator.
But yeah, the one thing that I think we can both agree on is that we were not left with the story ended thinking like, I need to know more about what happened to these characters or this kingdom.
That was not on my mind at all. I was already furiously typing you for that $4. So there was nothing about wanting more of this.
Well, that is probably why it took them 7 years to produce the novelization of, I guess, the intended sequel in the form of Shadow Moon by George Lucas and Chris Claremont.
Yeah. And by the way, props to us. I almost screwed up a lot of times and called the movie Thorn Ulfgood or whatever.
Yeah, they're interchangeable.
Thorn Drumheller, sorry.
Oh, boy. Well, we will get to that. One of the more curious decisions we've ever encountered in this in the history of this podcast, full of curious decisions.
Let's dive in to Shadow Moon.
Well, it starts with a prologue. As I think as fantasy books tend to want to do, there's usually some sort of backstory they need to tack onto, but this is just the story. We start off, about a year after Willow has ended, and it sort of just picks up, as a sequel might.
Yeah, and what do you think of the opening sentence? I don't think much of it, frankly.
In the middle of the night, Willow Ufgood rode the back of a dragon.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right. Well, it promises a dragon which we have not seen in the movie, but it also promises that dragon and then puts it off for several pages before we actually get to him. Talk about fanfic though. How many sentences like that are there spread across the web on fanfic forums or on just amateur fantasy writer forums? Right.
I would say that some version of that has been done 800 trillion times.
And so it starts with a bang, but when I really knew we were in for it,
that's a good one.
There again, yep. I really knew we were in for it by I think the third sentence was spring had come late this year. The weather changeable as a courtesan's costume, and that was sort of where I was just like, oh dear. The Ren Fair is in full display here.
Yes. We later get he woke with a start, but so I'm getting ahead of myself. Right. But that's I think we've had that in nearly every book. So.
Right. We get some fun unexpected things that compare to other books in the podcast at some point in time. We'll touch on those later. But if you were a fan of the Mom and Armada, you might be a fan of a little bit of physicality revealed about our hero later on. But it starts off with him plowing his fields behind a pig.
Is that another double entendre? No, I'm sorry.
But we get we're on the second page, and our hero is already dreaming of strangling a pig, and then cutting him up and eating glazed pork and bacon. And Willow has the ability to communicate with animals, which I don't think he had in the book. In the book, he just sort of had some light wizardry by the end of it.
In the movie.
In the movie, yes. But now he's a full-on sorcerer, I guess.
Yeah, he has. There's like a modernized word that he calls it. What is it? It's like it's like he's doing a Silicon Valley startup. It's called the something site.
Yes,
but it's a combined word with a camel caps in it.
Yes, let me find out where he introduces that, because he can see in the dark thanks to his mage sight.
That's it, mage sight.
Which is, it's camel cased, and. It says one of the first side effects of his wizardry was a heightened sensitivity of his physical being. He could outhear a cat, outscent a hunting hound, and his sight had no peer. Mage sight, he called it, allowing him the full range of vision even in pitch darkness. So I was wondering, he calls it this. Does he, when he refers to it or writes it down, does he camel case it himself?
That's a good question. I don't know. Maybe he's got, initial public offering, and he's got a write-up of the papers and the financials of Mage Site, and he's going to franchise it, and so he's doing that himself.
Well, it's got way too many vowels in it to be successful. I think it's doomed to fail.
He's not smart enough to grab up riff tracks before.
We went through some of the names we passed up for that the other day. What they were. Yuck Yucks, I think.
Oh, now in fairness to us, you put the stinkers on there just so you have time to live with them and also to know what you don't want. But yeah, there was a lot of, wow, what if we had just been a little off that day and chosen one of those.
Folded up shop 2 weeks later. Yak Tracks, that was one, and that's an actual product. Lauren told me I should put them on before I went to get a haircut today.
Yak Tracks?
Yak Tracks are like little like spikes or treads you can put on your shoes that sort of strap onto them.
Oh, okay. So, all right.
To be
it's not
sure-footed as a yak.
I thought it was yaks commenting over existing material or something.
But yeah, so we discuss he lives in the Vale, so he's not in the Shire, he's in the Vale, and he lives in something. His home is a walls of slab stone, like the house, which gave the whole structure the sense it was an extension of the natural landscape rather than something that had been built. And if you see the movie, you see that these are absolutely not hobbit holes. They are a very distinct type of dwelling built into the side of a hill. They're completely unique.
Yes, there is no hole in the ground where he lives, but yes, think Hobbit, and you will not be far off.
One thing that the hobbits didn't do, that characters in this book are doing a lot so far, is muttering things or grumbling things in asperity. Did you pick up on that?
I did. Why? Why that word?
I had to ask for a definition from my Amazon Echo because I didn't know what it meant. Probably because I haven't entered a spelling bee in a long time. But it's
what does it mean?
I don't remember.
Wow.
Some power, he muttered in asperity. Some wizard who can't even persuade a pig to pull a plow. And I had to look once this came up for a second time, and there's 8 or 9 of them in the book throughout. So it's one of it's a Claremontism, I guess.
You mean asperity, not pigs being asked to pull plows.
I put asperity on Claremont, pigs pulling plows on Lucas. I think we can. There's going to be things you can pinpoint to both of those guys throughout.
But there's right away I'm troubled by. I think the movie says it a million times. The name of his wife is what?
I think since he was always sort of just shrieking it. But I think Kaya.
I thought Kaya, but it's spelled
Kaaya. Yeah,
Kaya. So that always trips me up.
Yeah,
but it's just Kaya.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. Well, then I'm done. It's not going to be my Ogden. This whole.
Yeah. But we get. I don't get the sense we're going to be getting much of Kaya, but what we do get, she makes a big impression early on, and I just think I'm going to read it. Because
I want you. I'm turning this section over to you because this, I could tell, was very exciting to you.
Well, I mean, it's so you get the movie, and then people are left with questions, and one of the main questions is undoubtedly how erotic does it get between these two? We know they have 2 kids, so that's already sort of the subtext there, but. Chris Claremont and/or George Lucas wasted no time in spelling out their erotic relationship. Because on the 5th page, we get Willow. He spends some time at a workshop, making a teddy bear, but then he sneaks into bed. He took care not to wake Kaya as he snuggled his way gently beneath the sheets. There was a fresh scent of flowers and sunlight to the cotton, hardly a surprise since she'd watched them billow in the afternoon breeze as she hung them out to dry. She stirred anyway, sleepily murmuring his name, and to make up for disturbing her, he gently scratched her back along the length of her shoulder blade. She immediately rolled to her stomach, flexing along the full line of her like a cat, as an invitation to continue. And so he did, stroking the tips of his nails from the top to the bottom of her spine, while she smiled and purred in delight. She drew him to her, one kiss leading to another, returning his caresses with her own, and passion quickly claimed them both. Oh, yeah.
And then just read the first word of the next paragraph.
What? I don't have it.
Afterward.
And afterwards, he pretty much just emits a huge snore, right? He's done.
Yes.
Yeah. So, if you were one of those kids who got the color-changing plastic cup from Wendy's, you've got this to read as soon as your parents brought you home the book from the Scholastic Book Club.
Well, when the movie comes out, who do you think is going to be playing current day Willow and Kaya?
Man, I'm going to betray my knowledge of who might be able to fill that role, but got to imagine Dinklage has got to be casting his hat into the ring.
Well, though, now that we can, resize any size human being, I think it widens the field. Although I think that would be, unfair,
right,
to little people.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
yeah. But I don't know. Maybe that guy who was in There Will Be Blood, Paul Dano, would he make a good
Kaya or Willow dual role?
Willow. I was thinking Willow.
But yeah, so that got me wondering. So this is now officially on record that Willow has had sex, and so I just thought about other characters who are sort of where it's also on record that they have done this, and I didn't have to go to the dark web, but I wrote a little song. About,
oh, you wrote one.
Yeah, I just sort of sat down. I'm not a big music guy. I have no real musical talent other than the theme song. But I put some words, put some pen to paper, came up with some lyrics.
Nice.
Well, because
not a big music guy. You're in a band.
Well, I know, but it's not a good band. And the less said about them, the better. After seeing how the high school paper thing went over.
Yeah, right.
But so I just thought that other people might appreciate having this sort of laid out other characters who are canonically in this same position, and set it to the tune of a beloved song, just to make it easier to remember, I guess. So we can cue it up whenever you're ready.
All right, let's give it a listen.
Willow, Dagwood, Bumstead, Ron Weasley, Betty Rubble, Grandpa Joe from Willy Wonka, Topanga. These are all some people who canonically banged. Donkey Kong, Danny Tanner, High and Lois. Claire Huxtable had sex with Cliff, there's proof. Captain Caveman. These are all some people who canonically banged. Marge Simpson, Lady and the Tramp. They're fictional, but they totally banged. Mr. Burns, Carl Winslow. They're fictional, but they totally banged. Bowser, Linda Belcher, Dumbo's mom. Uncle Frank from Home Alone got laid. Calvin's dad. These are all some people who canonically banged. These are all some people who canonically banged. These are all some people who canonically banged. So yeah, in case you ever just need to settle a bar bet or, more nefarious means, there's your list of popular characters.
That is a handy a little thing to carry with you, I think, at all times, because that is going to come up a lot in your life.
And I learned something.
And I guess that's a stumper, is when you say Willow. So you can start it that way, win your bar bet, because everyone will go, Willow? Or I guess if you use his new name.
Oh, sure, Thorn. Yeah.
Then you're really going to throw him for one there.
The one thing that I learned, I originally had a line about Gordon from Sesame Street in there, but I went to verify that. I went to look up his son's name, and not canon, not verifiable, because Gordon and Susan adopted their child on Sesame Street. So
there you go. Wow. So go to a bar, challenge people. Thorn, and I always get that last name wrong. Drumheller.
Oh God.
Thorn Drumheller. Did he or did he not? And you'll make as much money as those guys who a guy made a bet with me once that he could eat a bar glass.
Good Lord.
And so I think he made about $100 that day when he actually broke into pieces and consumed a bar glass.
God.
So that's it's about at the same level as that. So yeah. Wow. I don't know whether he was a traveling circus freak who just happened into the bar I was in, but you can make as much money with the Thorn Drumheller bet.
It wasn't one of those like internet things where he said that and then there was some like wordplay or something where he I bet I can hold an elephant in my hand, and then there's some trick that it wasn't one of those. He literally
no, it wasn't like I can move this match without touching it.
Right, yeah.
I did it, and then you lift the glass.
Right, yeah.
Like, No, he ate it in front of me.
No.
That man is probably not alive
No,
anymore,
yeah, exactly.
But,
he can do 9 more of those and be able to afford a tenth of his hospital bill.
Yes. Anyway, great. Well, thank you for compiling those.
Yeah,
Connor.
you're welcome.
That's great.
Yeah. And then, so after that, he immediately starts riding a dragon, which I think they want you to ignore the symbolism of.
Yes. He rides and talks to the dragon.
Yeah. And so, I don't. Dragons were not in the main movie, so he's surprised and scared to be finding himself in this position, which he naturally assumes is a dream. And the thing that I thought was interesting was he's soaring through the air, he's seeing all these things, and it's where the author feels the need to include some details about Willow's DIY home repair past. He said he knew houses in his village where one of the dragon's scales would have served as a good-sized wall. The only reason he didn't number among them was that he'd expanded it to a second story when the children grew old enough for rooms of their own. And it says, normally heights terrified him. His wife was far better on ladders than he. So just, real rich details here. Willow has added a second story to his home, but not for fear of ladders, because his wife is better on them.
And we are on page 6 of a prologue here. Could you cut to the chase, man?
Oh, man.
But I like to do voice challenges for us here. So here's the challenge for us both to do this voice of the dragon. It was a pleasant voice with a baritone's hearty resonance, the kind he'd expect to hear at the Ram's Horn Inn telling stories before the blazing hearth fire. So give me your best impression of that voice.
Well, Chris wandered into the Ram's Horn this fine evening. Grab a tankard of ale, Willow, and pull up a chair.
Very good. Yeah, mine would be something like this. Oh, this is my first time at the Ram's Horn Inn, but who wants to bet that I can't eat one of your bar glasses? So yeah, that's good.
Yeah. I hope we go back to the Ram's Horn, though I fear it might not survive the events that close out the prologue.
I think one of the reasons that the voice is pleasant and has a hearty baritone resonance is depicted in this line. Willow Ulfgood was the new one's reply as the dragon offered a wry grin with his surprisingly mobile mouth that revealed fangs far longer than Willow was tall. I have 2 questions about that. Did we have a line like that in the Mister, surprisingly mobile mouth? And the second question, why is it a surprise that his dream dragon has a mobile mouth?
I have no idea what that means. Like, I'm picturing,
the previous dragons had lockjaw, I guess. I don't know.
Or like it's like in a cartoon where their teeth are piano keys all of a sudden. That's a surprising mobility.
Sure. I'm sure that dragon gets it all the time too. So it was everything he could do to hold back. I'm like, God, your mouth is really mobile. I know. Yeah, okay, exactly. My mouth is mobile. I get it. I'm sorry.
But so it is. Willow does assume it's a dream, but even in this dream, the dragon starts he flies him up above the clouds, and he starts dropping knowledge on him about sort of the it's the metaphysics of the world, I guess. Like he explains to him, he essentially is the first person to ever tell or suggest to Willow that the world is round.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even notice that detail.
He's like, the world has no end.
Off.
Yeah, and Willow says, you lie. And then he says, look to the edge of what you can see, Willow. How do things appear? Are you too afraid to try? And Willow takes a brave stance because no giant lizard was going to shame him.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Racist.
But I imagine that the lizard shaming ballroom at Dragon Con is actually one of the more popular rooms. You can just to stand in line to be shamed by a giant lizard is probably pretty popular.
The recreate Willow and Kaya room is much more popular. But...
And when they combine the two on the final night, that's a whoo boy.
Yeah, he mentions domains there as here, all the realms of the Vale folk. And I this is my question to you. How much do you know? You saw the movie. How much do you know about the Vale folk? Because I looked them up.
Oh, God. Well, they had like the high priest who did that, and they have some sort of harvest celebration every year, which looked pretty crappy. I don't believe that they leave the Vale unless they find a baby in the reeds who'd been floated down the river like Moses. And that is where my knowledge ends.
Are you confusing the Vale folk with the
Nelwynds?
Nulwyn?
Damn it. Oh,
you.
Man.
I'm
going to be laughed out at Dragon Con next year before I can even be lizard shamed.
Let me set you straight. The Vale folk have a weakness towards steel and can't stand their touch. As a means of protection against the races who are immune to and work with it, I have examples, the Dakini, the Nulwyn, and the Forge folk. They bred a race of warhounds, which eventually became the Death Dogs.
Oh, my God.
Which I assumed was like some Brooklyn Brew Pub's version of a Nathan's with ghost pepper jelly on it or something. But no, the Death Dogs were those the dogs with carpeting on their back and the rat tails.
Which was there was a movie they were colorizing in the early days of Riff Tracks at the other side of the office called what the hell was it?
Oh, we did it on MST. Yeah, there's just dogs with carpets on them.
Right, much tinier, less intimidating dogs than those ones in the movie.
Yeah. I forget what it was called. Shrew. No, not
Killer
Shrew.
Shrews. Yep.
Killer Shrews?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, so you read them, some of them there, but we get serious Lucas names, as opposed to the Naboo and the Woutinis and all that. Like they're in full strength here with the Nelwyn, the Daikini, the Death Dogs. So you get the sense he probably just handed out that outline to this more respected author and was like, make sure the Daikini make it in there, and the Death Dogs too. Don't go making these names less stupid.
Yeah, and this author probably said, I have a good name for the Dream Dragon. Like, no, I already did it. It's Denier, Callan Denier. But mine is good.
Right.
It's Callan Denier. All right.
So he essentially just like opens Willow's eyes. It's like when Neo takes the red pill in the Matrix to sort of and it fills him with terror, even though he's for some reason thinks it's just a dream. It's like, he's left trembling with the awful sweep required of his imagination. Ice gripped him heart and soul, a terror as sudden and all-consuming as the fear of his family's death. And then in the next sentence, he's just like, but this is a dream, so I don't care what you're saying, Dragon. So, he can't have it both ways.
I'm still slightly foggy about which part is dream and what time we're in at which section. So maybe you can enlighten me once we get to chapter 1.
Sure.
Since this was a prologue, frankly, I wasn't paying a lot of attention to it. And then it just went on and on and on.
Man.
It's like when we're writing a riff tracks and you're in a section where it's just some interminable thing and you start writing with the assumption, well, this is obviously going to be over in 30 seconds.
Right. And
then 12 minutes of film later, you're still in the exact same location.
Right, yes, exactly.
Trying to come up with new jokes. That was me like, I'm going to be done with the prologue any second now. Any second. And it just keeps going. Just going back a little bit, he talked about this sentence, and I just wondered if anyone immediately wrote a fart joke in their own mind here. He said, there was a rush of wind, exceptionally gentle considering the tremendous size of the creature that generated it. I was trying to think of who the guy we would then tag that on.
Right.
Who would that creature be? But I'll leave that to the listeners.
The Dragon's Fart Tavern is the rival to the Boar's Horn or whatever that one was.
the Rams.
I like this, and this is going to be a fun game to sort of play. We've done this before with Lucas projects, but it says they approach, I think, the castle where he's going to meet the other characters from the first movie. It says, a serried line of mountains, saw-toothed and jagged like the mouth of a shark, building to the ugly hollow of an ancient volcano. It just got me wondering, are there sharks in the WillowVerse? Like, Willow has not seen sharks. There was not sharks in the other movie. So things like this keep stacking up throughout the book. So I think it'll be a fun game to keep playing, just to be like, is this something the author is just telling us, or is this something that the characters are meant to be conveying to us? Because as far as I know, there were no sharks that we would have ever encountered.
Yeah, I mean, it's always jarring when, okay, so it's an omniscient narrator, but you generally don't, the mountains lined up like, inverted coffee cups at a fast food restaurant,
right.
Like, wait a minute.
Right.
You don't have you got to kind of limit those descriptions to the known universe.
The minstrels banged out a rhythm on their drums similar to the 2019 viral hit Baby Shark.
Yes.
The dragon essentially takes them to the castle behind those shark-like mountains, and this is where we get to see Mad Mardigan and Sorsha fighting, who are two of the main characters from the movie. And
yes, which when I read this, I watched the movie after the fact,
wow.
So this was deeply, deeply confusing. Although it came into focus with this sentence when he gets to the castle. The woman wore black, wool and cotton, and leather and mail, as though ready to ride to battle. And I just, like, how often do you recognize fabric makeup from far off? Like, he can name every fabric.
Yeah, it's he goes into George R.R. Martin syndrome, where there's just paragraphs spent describing doublets and jerkins and all that stuff. It happens really quickly as soon as you meet these two people.
Boiled leather, isn't that the?
Oh yeah,
George? I've never read it, but that's what everyone tells me. It's like,
yeah,
pages of boiled leather.
It's amazing. Like, and it, I assume at some point it becomes, he leans into it, but he keeps doing it, and it's not really funny unless you're unless you've read the internet word counts of his books. But yeah, we get some of that stuff here too. Fur trimmed boots. More appropriate to the royal court, splendid for the dance, useless on campaign. His pants were cut more to show the elegant shape of his leg than actual comfort. His shirt was a bell-sleeved cotton, so fine it resembled silk. What the hell? I mean, especially knowing what we do is that these people die in 10 pages.
Right. But she was wearing boots with the fur?
I think that was Mad Mardigan.
Okay.
Fuck yeah. But the other thing, and this is another thing to keep an eye on as we go forward, I read this twice because I read it too before the movie and then went back because I had no idea what was going on. But the hair descriptions are abundant and unnecessary and incredibly detailed. So I just started flagging them every time they happened.
Oh wow! I did not pick up on that.
Oh, it's incredible.
What do you got?
So he's the first one he describes is I guess we get Willow's hair at first for some reason, but it says Willow's hair was shoulder length and full, mahogany brown at first glance, but shot through with streaks of fiery russet that manifested themselves in the right light. So that's odd, just to have deceptive hair. And then you get Sorsha. The only spot of color about her was her hair. It was the red of fallen leaves, the dusky rose of simmering coals, making her face appear all the more pale by contrast. The man's hair appeared black, though Willow knew it was laced with dark brown. So, like, both of them, Willow and Mad Mardigan, have deceptive hair. Which,
some sort of force field? Or, aha, you thought my hair was this, but it's not. I've distracted you long enough to stab you.
Maybe they end up on the realms version of the Newlywed Game, where you have to match your partner's secret answer, and but they both know each other's secret hair colors.
Right.
Or much more likely, it will not pay off and has no bearing on anything.
Well, I assume that they're not returning, though. because we're on a new adventure. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason people did not like the book is because it sort of just took what they liked about the first book and immediately dispatched them.
We do get this line from Mad Mardigan, which I liked, to her. "You're a princess, damn it. Try acting the part. I'm supposed to be the rogue here."
Yeah.
I like when characters
right.
completely upfront about who they are.
When they read the show Bible notes to the reader.
Yeah. "Damn it, I'm Rick, the heartbroken tavern owner, pretending to be cynical, and you're Ilsa, the devoted but world-weary love interest."
But he would say that in his rich baritone at the ram's horn.
Of course.
Yeah, and so she's also a reluctant princess, as she spells out, too. She says, "I hate the way the king's household looks at me. They want to make me something I'm not and resent me for resisting."
Thanks for laying it out there.
And then they quickly bring up the scene of, he says, "I think you look lovely in a gown." And she says, "Funny, based on our first meeting, I thought much the same of you." Because when they meet in the book, he is... oh,
right. He's doing that bad... some like it hot
yes,
cross-dressing.
Right, angry husband breaks in on him like in an old cartoon, and he has to put on a dress to escape.
Yeah, Bugs Bunny actually looked better.
But this is where she introduces very clumsily, I thought, his what his name is going to be for the rest of the book. She calls him she's like, I've always thought of you as a Drumheller, Willow, which is a part pathfinder, part stalking horse, the warrior sent ahead of all the rest of us to charm an ambush out of hiding. So, okay. And then one of them says...
Thank you, I guess.
And then another one says, "Conversations like this, my lad, it strikes me Willow's not the name for you. Bends too easily. When you may appear in form, but in substance you are something far more formidable, deserving of a title to match. For the duration of this dream," because Willow tells them and he thinks it's a dream, which they just sort of accept. "For the duration of this dream you shall henceforth be known with all rights as Thorn Drumheller." Which, okay, all right. That's interesting.
Do I have to?
Sure, yeah, exactly.
Do I go to the DMV right now, or how does this work? Yeah. My problem with this whole section was I did not understand that all this wisecracking back and forth. The truth is finally revealed that I'm not actually a very good reader at all.
Okay.
But it was foggy to me what was happening in space here. Where are they? They're somewhere in a castle and they're bantering back and forth. He talks a lot about how their verbal repartee is just sharper than any sword. And they're doing things like, "I know you are, but what am I?" And he's like, "Boy, oh boy, those two," when you wound them up.
Yeah.
Whew, firecrackers.
Yeah, it's listening to Christopher Hitchens debate, another prominent, well-spoken person with their japes.
The Algonquin Round Table, yeah.
And it is. It's
Bone mows.
We get those with the Brownies, too. But no, I felt the same way. I felt it very hard to, time and space and mind's eye to picture what was going on. In a lot of these situations. And maybe I'm an idiot, but I did read it twice. So
okay, so all we know, he creeps up to a castle, so they're just somewhere.
Yeah, I felt like they're on in between the parapets, fencing overlooking something. There's evidently like a celebration going on because there's music playing too. So but again, doesn't matter. They die in 5 pages from here, so
okay. Yeah. All right. Well.
Oh yeah, but yeah, the exact quote you were talking of was Willow. Willow says, "You're both demented. Takes one to know one," was Mad Mardigan's riposte. "These two fenced as fiercely with words as with blades." Do they? Do they? It's like
I wondered if that was a joke or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, no, it keeps coming up. Like they say this, pretty much the same thing about the Brownies.
Okay. And speaking of that celebration, there's a description of it. This time she didn't hit him or push away, but tried to match herself to the melodies of the fiddles, ulen pipes, and tiampan gaily holding forth below. I guess it's ulen pipes. I've never known how to pronounce that.
No,
I know a fiddle. I know ulen pipes. Never heard of tiamapan. What would you think just offhand? Tiamapan.
I would assume that he had misspelled timpani.
It's not a drum. It's like a hammer dulcimer.
Not a fan.
So anyway, when you think of the music she's matching, just think of the most Renaissance-y bullshit you've ever possibly heard in your life, and that's what's happening while they're doing their little their tete-a-tete.
When the crowd demands part 2 of the canonically banged song, that's what I will set it to.
Right.
Well, he sort of like says like if I never see the two of you again, it will be too soon as he leaves, and it sort of has like it does like Stephen King does this a lot. It's like he didn't mean it, of course, but that's the trouble with words spoken in haste and in heat. They come back to haunt you. So a little bit of foreshadowing, but I guess we've already ruined the surprise that they both die.
Right. Oh, I should point out before, this is just a weird coincidence that I noticed. What's her name? Sorsha?
Sorsha, yeah. It always bugged me because it sounds too much like sorceress or something like that. Sorcerer.
Yeah. She says in this sentence, to charm, Sorsha repeated, and with a grace that matched her mate's, took Willow by the hands and drew him gently along the sky bridge.
Oh, wow.
Sky bridge, which is, I mean, it's Shatlardian, right?
Yes, very much. The Plaz Sky Bridge.
Yes.
But yeah.
But it's also, it reminded me right away of there's, the legendary band,
Sure.
The Replacements.
Of course. Oh, yeah.
Paul Westerberg, who I saw in a grocery store just the other day, if I may give it away, my celebrity sighting.
Did you ask him which version of Can't Hardly Wait he considers to be the superior one?
It was so, he is not a person who gives off an air of, please come up and say silly things to me. Anyway, he has a song that has that same name, and I just wanted to, it's a beautiful little haunting love song, and so I just wanted to play a little snippet of one of my favorite songs, Sky. It's beautiful,
touching,
isn't it?
yeah. You sort of, it puts you in the in a Minneapolis winter mindset.
Yeah,
I like
as we all take the sky bridges.
This book is inspiring some serious music. I wonder what it could be about. It just the minstrels or I don't know.
Timopans, Uilleann pipes.
I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. I don't have it set in front of me, but
there's probably someone I'm going to say it again just so the person who knows how to pronounce it out there is just enraged. Tiamopan?
God. Well, we'll find some music. Maybe we can lay it on the outro.
Do not take Tiamopan if you have recently been to a country where fungal infections are common. All right, yeah. So he's got a new name, and I probably didn't even know as I read this that they died. So let's get to that.
Sure. I mean, I guess I'm assuming that, but yeah, he goes to visit his the baby who is the baby from the movie, whose name I don't have written down, Elora Danan. And she's like one of those annoying people who have two names that you always have to say. Like, I guess, Mary Kate Olsen.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Yeah, pet peeve of mine. But when he goes in, he doesn't need to use his mage sight because there's so much light in the thing. And we get another thing. Does this exist in the WillowVerse? It says Willow took advantage of their disputations, the brownies who have already shot him in the ass with an arrow. Willow took advantage of their disputations to cross to the bed for a closer look at his goddaughter. So I need to know the extent of, the presence of the Almighty in the WillowVerse, because it wasn't touched on.
What church would that be?
Right? Like, is it
and how seriously? In some places, that you can be a goddaughter, but it's not. There's not a religious obligation. Others take it quite seriously, and you were responsible for the spiritual upbringing of this person. So that'd be good to know.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll just we'll add that to the list. Do sharks exist, and does God exist in this WillowVerse? But we get another one, number 4, I think, because when you see a 1-year-old baby, the first thing you need to know is all about her hair. So her hair was spun gold, shot through with strands of fire that might well have come from Sorsha's own head. So everyone has hair that has one color, but then, secretly has a second color somewhere inside of it.
Well, that's very popular right now, isn't it? That kind of, dyed hair where there's kind of strips of blonde in it. You used to try to hide that, but now it's just sort of a fashion thing. So, they probably go to the same hairdresser.
Right. Which also, hairdressers, very much a part of the WillowVerse.
Oh, totally. Yeah, he does that like foil treatment, right?
Right.
Where you foil off and then paint the rest of the hair and then take the foil off and do that. Yeah. Makes sense to me. Oh, by the way, this baby, wasn't it 100% a ginger in the movie, right?
Oh, yeah. It was like, I was like, could this be Ron Howard's daughter? Because she has like pretty prominent red hair.
Same thing.
But it was, we saw at the end because I was like, I wonder if this baby went on to do anything. And it was again, like two babies, like twins and stuff. But,
and it was a very cute baby, very effective at the job it was doing. There's my positive for Willow. But by the 11,000th time they cut to the baby and padded the movie, I was like, all right. There's a baby in that thing. I know. Yeah. But it was doing like the, dog reacting to nut shots. I mean, like, oh.
Yeah, that really stood out to me. I was like, if I had the wherewithal, I would make a gallery of the reaction shots for Patreon or something. Because, yeah, it was constant cutaways to a baby that was clearly nowhere near anything that was happening. But right. It had all sorts of like smiles or cringes or, probably just having gas. But like that was how they utilized the baby for the most part. And then it was fake in every other scene.
Right. And that brings us to another thing that, going back to the movie, because we didn't talk about this. As you were doing this, did you read the Brownies in the voices of the movie Brownies?
Oh, God. Yeah.
Because Bridget was trying to do some work behind me in the same room. And I was going, every time they came on, I was like, God damn it, shut up. Yeah. And she's like, I'm actually writing something back here.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Father. Let me put the phone down and mute this and ask Mike to please.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It is unfathomable to me that they got through a single round of focus grouping where, in focus groups, of course they do the thing. Who's your favorite character? Who's your least favorite character? And I'm like, Barb, you didn't like the wizard? Yeah, the wizard is supposed to be evil, though. I'll remind you that. But in this one, it had to be like hands shooting up.
Yeah.
Please, God, take those Brownies out of this movie. They were like biting down on multiple balls of tinfoil on your fillings all the time.
And so clearly just something that, is George Lucas's, like we got to have a annoying as shit comic relief character in here because otherwise, like, why would you be and it's like no one's laughing. We're all irritated by these people, like, but yeah, I was disappointed that they are the people that are going to be tagging along for the rest of the book.
Yeah. And in that movie too, this is a thing that I had forgotten. I did remember that there was that irritating, Kevin Pollak. I forget the other guy's name, another very successful comedian. So I don't know whether they were directed to just like do the first funny voice that you could possibly think of. And Kevin Pollak goes, "Oh, I'm a guy who talks like this." And the other guy's like, "No way, man." And then they sped up their voices to make them even more annoying.
Right.
But yeah, the fact that then they played throughout the film, they were a huge part of it.
Yeah,
they weren't just like a little spice and you could like a Jar Jar that you could kind of ignore for the most part.
No, key parts of it that just, keep coming back and following them no matter how far they travel. And we're not really aware what their powers are, if that's part of it. But an annoyance to say the least. I remember, when we created the disembodio mechanic for syncing riff tracks, I think we were just like, yeah, so just like, alter Connor's voice and just so they know that it's not like one part of the actual thing. And he was like, how about this? And he hits like two buttons. And it was like, yeah, that works.
That's
pitch
fine.
Shift and this thing. And that's pretty much like what they did in the movie too. Just like, and speed it up, pitch shift, and there's your effect for this $1 million movie.
Yep, for this huge budgeted movie. Yeah, so, and that the fact that these guys are along apparently for the ride in this book. And also, though, shooting him with arrows, I'm just reaching out and crushing him right now because those movies, they were depicted in the movie. It's not like being hit with a grain of rice shot from a tiny rubber band or something. They're like penetrating his flesh, quite
right. Yeah.
It's like someone stabbing you with a straightened out paper clip all the way down 2 inches into your flesh or something.
Yeah, it's not a friendly little like ear flick or something. What was the thing that in the high school in San Diego that they had to ban the boys from doing to each other?
Yes, I'll describe it before saying what the name is because the name really brings it home. Is the boys would walk up with either one hand or two which would be the double version of what I'm about to tell you, and to another guy and just reach under the male breast and sort of grab a little like bit of flesh and sort of push up, just like you're grabbing them, and then would say, "Scoop." And so the principal of the school had to write a very officious document with there will be no more scooping no single scoops, no double scoops.
He pauses, he looks up at his master's degree, his PhD in education, and then goes back to the scooping document. But yeah, so it wasn't it's not even like one of those to greet someone. It's an actual arrow. He must have been delighted when they tagged along in one of the things that he spent a lot of time discussing and is probably going to have a role later in the book. But his traveling pouch, which is sort of it's just like his mage side, where it's like Willow can see in the dark now. Oh, and he also has this magic bag, which it says the apparent size of the bag bore no relationship whatsoever to the volume within or how much it could carry. Food would stay fresh, water wouldn't spill. If something fit through the drawstring, it could be carried inside. All he had to do was think about what he needed and reach in. If it had been packed away, his hand would instantly find it. So it just, it's just going to hand wave away any concerns about. So how is he, going to be eating as he's wandering the world? He has food. He always has water, and he can transport anything he wants to wherever he goes.
I wondered if Lucas had just been playing a video game or something, and that was the first time that he'd ever heard of, like picking up various weapons and things, and they just magically are yours now.
Right.
And so he's like, well, this is cool. I should put this in a movie. George, that's every video game.
Right. Yeah. No, they'll want a detailed description of how it works. They don't care.
Right.
We also get some more of their the brownies, who are also fencing as fiercely with words as with blades. And one of them says, "She's sleeping all right?" he asked as he smoothed her hair on the bear's head. "Like a baby," said Rule. "Dolt," said Frangen. "What did you expect? She is a baby." Moving on. So yeah, that's the bar. The bar for verbal japery is low.
I confess, I started reading even this part before. So maybe right around here is when I watched the movie, in between my two readings. And Rule and Frangen, I don't know what it is. Sure. I had no idea their dialogue was supposed to be funny banter between them. I didn't know what it was. These guys are very odd and clunky, but maybe they'll make sense later or something.
Right.
But no, that is supposed to be them cracking wise like crazy, right?
Yeah, if you hadn't seen the movie, you wouldn't know it was supposed to be, Waldorf and Statler, I guess.
Right. And then, I'm jumping to the dream is over, and there it is. The next he knew, it was morning. He woke with a start beside his wife, where he'd known he'd been all through the night. So just marking it here, I think that's pretty much every book. I know it was in all Klein books. It was in Shatlart.
What, Waking with a Start?
Waking with a Start, and it was in Trucken.
Mm-hmm. It had to be in a Mister. Blariana had to be waking up in the back of the car, waking with a start and knocking the bucket over.
Yep, and she would, when she wasn't waking with snapping one eye open, she was waking with a start. But I think I said in a previous one about that, because they had been stacking up, that I wrote an essay for like sophomore English where I started with that, and the teacher was like, "Come on." So.
Oh, well, so he wakes with a start, and it says he did not know that while he slept, the world as he known it had come to its end. And so that's how the prologue ends, even though the prologue is, it was 3/5 of what we're going to cover today.
Right. So nothing. So I guess that's my question about, so that was a dream or it did happen?
Well, the brownies are on his nightstand. So they have, tagged along with him. So I think we are led to believe that it actually did happen. I don't know. That's the one clue, I guess, that he wakes up and, he's got sand in his pocket. He's like, but I dreamed I was at the beach.
But see if this sounds familiar. This is, I think, from the final paragraph. He was so thankful for that realization that it was a long few moments before his mind registered what his eyes beheld from the first.
All right. Yeah, that works.
So time just doesn't, in all of our books, time's not just what it is. It's either long version, usually longer.
Right. Or needlessly
Several
specific.
long minutes.
It's either that or just he looked at it for 3 minutes as he walked down the hall talking to the evil Sorrento guy or something.
The Sorrento office walk, I believe, was 2 minutes. Just put the stopwatch on that of walking down a hall with a guy.
Yeah,
in that situation.
I got my haircut today, and it was like, all right, I've sort of exhausted the pleasantries of the holidays, and once you stop talking, it's hard to gear it back up again, and then it's like it gets long enough that it's like, oh boy, now it's really weighing on me. And but that was I wasn't walking down the hall next to someone. At least when you're cutting your hair, it's like, oh, I'll just close my eyes and sort of let her do her thing.
Yeah, everybody's favorite thing. I finally found a person who everything is understood about it, so there's no more discomfort. Mm-hmm. I've been to this person enough that she has a few, hey, didn't you travel last time? And then I'll say that I did, and then she ceases to be interested, and we're perfectly fine.
Delightful. Amazing.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm sticking with her no matter how bad my hair is.
Yes.
I'm just
I didn't want to say anything, but I guess it's worth it now.
Cost me $300 every time.
Well, having covered the prologue of the segment where we read either passages that come later in the book or fanfic that was written by you, our loyal and sometimes very clever listeners, and we try to see if Mike can guess which one is real and which one is fanfic. We have 5 of them today. And I was trying to suss out on Patreon, like, is it harder in the beginning, do you think? Because you don't have a grasp of the book? Or is it easier because there's like such a blank canvas where anything could happen in the next 400 pages of this book?
Yeah, I think we're in the same boat, unless it's someone who's very familiar and has read ahead. But does that necessarily help them because I haven't?
Right.
There's a lot of levels going on here. It's multi-level chess.
Right. All right, so here's entry number 1. 100,000 crowns. That got everybody's attention. It was literally a king's ransom. But only if they're alive and substantially unharmed. They're of no use dead. You've seen what that damned sorcerer can do, Anakari, and I pray to see him undo it, Modri. They may not be slain within the walls, my father, the other royals, the people, until I know better. I choose to hold on to that hope. I need a place to work, and one of your household sorcerers. I'll also be sending word to the realms beyond. Whoever he is, that cunning little man, whatever he's about, by morning I want him to find every hand turned against him. Wherever he runs or tries to hide, every door and pathway will be closed. Whatever the cost, Lord Castellan, I want Thorn Drumheller found.
See, this is tough. But I realized while you were reading that, an angle will be how many dumbass names can they slip by me and fool me on. That'll be a rich vein now that I realize that.
Yes.
But with the absence of any knowledge yet, I'm going to say that was real.
All right. Here is number 2. 2 furious Brownie heads popped up before his eyes, cheeks flaming with anger. Thorn, you never listened, snapped Rule. I don't know why we stick around, added Frangine. Without us, you'd long since have lost the very boots on your feet, or lost your way, or lost your head. Their voices had been increasing in volume with each breath, always impressive given their tiny size. So do as we tell you, they shrieked in unison. Thorn muttered and scowled like a carpenter who had just hit his thumb with a hammer, but at least he gave in and nodded.
All right, I'm going to say that's fanfic.
Okay.
Leaning heavy on the brownies there.
Number 3. The death dog gave a low snarl, bearing a dreadful row of teeth sharp and straight as spears arrayed for battle. Stinking spittle dripped from its powerful jaws to pool on the cool, hard earth below. No, yelled Thorn. The creature had Frangine square in its sights. The brownie whistled a jaunty tune as he rubbed his hands together by the fire, warming his diminutive frame, utterly aware of the mortal danger stalking him from the shadows. The Nelwyn had his mage sight to thank for alerting him to the death dog's presence, and now, as the hound braced for attack, he had no choice but to call on his full powers of magery and meld his consciousness with that of the slavering beast.
It's good. I'll say it's fanfic.
Okay. Number 4. The Nelwyn couldn't reach the rope serving as a pull, but the door snapped open suddenly, sending him stumbling back. Frangine recovered first. From upon Thorn's shoulders, he gave a courtly bow. His hat tickled Thorn's ear as it swept past. A small, plump daikini in a small, homespun yet frilly dress stood before them, holding the door open. Her face became all rosy-cheeked as she smiled. Thorn felt something stir in his heart where it hadn't since the cataclysm, letting in a sliver of warmth where it had been dry and as cold as a clear desert night. "Well, aren't you cute?" she said. Franjean crushed his hat to his chest. "You make successful effort to flatter me, my dear lady." She propped a fist on a saucy round hip and said, "I wasn't talking to you."
And then he goes over and traces his fingernail down her shoulder blade. And we know what happens then. Uh-huh. I hope that's real, but I'm going to say it's fanfic.
All right. And finally, number 5. The stout, black-haired daikini stood at the prow of the low-slung bark, his muscular, tattooed arms coiling a heavy rope wound from the scattered patches of grasses that dotted the beaches bordering the Irulan coast. He eyed the Nelwyn and the 2 brownies suspiciously. The dun sails of the ship were tattered and ragged, and brought to mind in their swaying the march of the pirates of that region, who once had swarmed the small towns and villages nearby like ants on a crusty rind of hearth-baked bread. "This is our passage forward?" Thorn asked, looking up at the 2 brownies who had now retreated behind him.
Well, I like ants on crusty hearth-baked bread, which I think you can actually get along with a death dog at one of those bars. With a triple IPA, an Imperial Red,
yeah, brewed from yeast found in the brewer's beard, of course.
Yeah, yes. I'm going to say fanfic.
All right. Well.
Oh boy,
I think you got 100%.
Oh, that's what that meant.
Wow, yes. Number 1, the 100,000 crowns with the Ankeri, Modri, Lord Castellan. That was real, sent in by Stephen. Number two was the brownies bantering about losing your head or your way. That was fanfic sent in by Melissa. You're right. People leaned heavily on the brownies this time around. I think it was the easiest thing to imitate was their shitty banter. Number 3 was the death dog about to attack Franjean. That was fanfic sent in by Christine. Number 4 was the plump daikini with the saucy round hip. That was fanfic sent in by Marie. And then number 5. No, I thought number 5 was going to trick you, man. I guess I thought that the dun sails and the low sung bark, BARQUE, and ants on the. I guess maybe the ants was a little too was a bridge too far, but that was fanfic sent in by Rob.
Yeah, again, I wouldn't say too far. I mean, given some of the descriptions, there's some coming up that I think he's taking it from. I believe there's there's some biscuit descriptions and griddles that got me going, what? Why are we pulling that in here? But well done.
Yeah, well done. There was several more I didn't have time to pick from, so we'll have those for next time, but send in yours next time if you think you can do better. This is a bonus one that was just one sentence that I thought was very funny, but I didn't think it was worth putting in because it wasn't long enough, but it was from Andrew. Thorn shouldn't have been surprised that his pig was too stubborn to die in the cataclysm. Nice. So yeah, didn't have a chance to read them all, but thanks to everyone who sent them in, including all of our Patreon supporters who stepped up this time around. We have been we did a lot on Patreon in between these books. We did a review of the White Worm movie. We did a White Worm mailbag, and we everyone gets these episodes early, so they've been snatching up all the used copies of this book for much cheaper than everybody else. So thank you for everyone who supports us on Patreon. For $5 a month, you get every episode early, but even just kicking in a buck or two makes it more fun to do this. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, there was a lot of activity. Patreon was ablaze with things over this little otherwise hiatus, because it wasn't really a hiatus.
Yeah. I should mention, as far as fanfic goes, too, I got Janelle, who's been listening from day one, sent me the copy of the 372 pages fanfic she's been writing, which is called We Will Get Back. And that came over the weekend. It's a nicely bound volume. It's got a corgi wearing a Nats hat on the front. It is full of references to every single book and thing that we've latched on to. We start trucking through time with Ernest Cline, who falls in love with Bleriana.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
This sounds magical.
It's a deep volume. Yeah, it's very impressive. And it came along with some amazing stickers that she's made that she's trying to figure out a way to see if there's a way to get them, up and available for people. But there's stickers from every single book. There's, Henry the Hoover stickers. There is a name tag that says, "Hello, my name is," and then it's Titus Uno's whole thing that ends up running off of the name tag. So if you're a fan of the podcast and these deep cuts, it is amazing. And we'll see if we can, whenever she gets them up for sale, we'll send a link to them.
And look, the holidays are coming up. I know they're a time of joy for a lot of people. They're also a time of, some stress and sadness for others. Put that Henry the Hoover sticker up there, and you will never be depressed again. All you will do is smile all day long. And I think that's healthy, don't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, we finished the prologue. We can move on to, I guess, the actual book now. So this is chapter 1, and we're going to bail on that about halfway through it, I think, because there are some long chapters in this book. But
all right, let's dive into chapter 1, part of chapter 1.
I mean, otherwise these things go on for over 2 hours, and we all agree that's too long to yammer and to listen to be yammered at.
Yeah, well, those listeners can break them up.
Sure,
we do not break them up.
Well, yeah, it starts off with a bang. It says, "The eagles told them that the rider was close. Thorn didn't see."
Eagles,
yeah,
eagles.
Yeah.
Where have I seen those before? I realized as I was reading this that there are eagles in the movie, right?
Were there?
I see. This is where this is where the movie, even though I just watched it, still makes no impression.
Did they help out in the final battle, or?
I don't know. Look,
okay.
Now I withdraw what I said. I thought there were, and I thought that's why they were in this. But anyway, yeah. And I'll say up front again, the physical space of what is going on here was very elusive to me. Again, am I not reading closely enough, or is this sort of? It seems like the plot and the physical surroundings are like breadcrumbs that we have to discover after reading a bunch and then going, "Oh, that's what he's talking about." But maybe that's just me. Maybe this is the clearest writing anyone has ever read, and I'm just thick as a brick.
I think it's very tricky, and I think that the changing your main character's name, which was the name of the movie, and hence all branding and recognizability after a prologue is a curious decision. So it may speak to these guys not having the interest of the reader in mind as they're doing this. There's lots of things that are mentioned, like these eagles, that are then ignored for 10 or 20 more pages until they're actually formally introduced.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. The eagles told them the rider was close, but we get no dialogue from it or anything. And then, we don't get eagles.
We don't even get the rider. The rider is off-put as Willow goes and puts a bunch of stones in a pile for about 10 pages.
I was baffled by that. Baffled. And he's observing this place where there used to be a mountain, and then all of a sudden he's going down into it, and it's a bowl and everything. Anyway, so he's describing that. Here's the first thing that I noticed is a bit of just sort of character fleshing out that is good to know. His first and dominant impression of the scar, which is this, I guess, the area where the mountains used to be, was one of smoothness, as though a terrible god, there's a god, had sliced the mountain from its fellows as neatly as Thorn might a fresh-baked muffin from its tin, and then wantonly smashed it to bits. So the fact that Thorn could easily cut a muffin from its tin, I hope that comes back, If not, I'm going to be sorely disappointed.
Right, and just another, glimpse into their world. They do eat muffins, and they do use tins to make them.
Right.
Another thing like that, which was brought up, was the Brownies are traveling with him, and they had wanted to hide and told Thorn so repeatedly, each more loudly and insistent than the other, volleying protests and epithets back and forth as if it was a game of tennis. So in the Vale, Willow and the High Priest are strapping on their whites and going and playing a game of tennis on Sundays.
I wondered exactly the same thing. Is it like kind of lawn tennis, or sort of that demure where they're laughing and taking sips of a mint julep between?
Right.
Or are they grinding it out, on hard courts and
pickleball,
getting in each other's faces? Oh, pickleball, yeah, sure.
It was just another thing to add to the list. So it varies with importance. We've got sharks, muffin tins, tennis, God, as these things.
I will point out, there's somebody out there who's going to say, yeah, well, there's tennis was played in Henry V. That's the opening. That's the inciting incident in Shakespeare's Henry V. So I know that there is tennis around. So it's So. We should just emphasize it for everybody that the prologue ended, and now he is 100% being called Thorn for the rest of the book. Evidently, Thorn Drumheller. And this is we're led to know that this is about 12 years after the Cataclysm, which was an event that wiped out a bunch of stuff. That's what made the mountain be a muffin out of its tin. But Thorn has, he's in since then he has seen some stuff, and we are led to understand that in a very sort of cliched way. It says everything and everyone that had lived within sight of the blast was gone, as though they'd never been, and nothing had stepped in since to fill the void. As with all the others, he said aloud, mainly to break the eerie silence, absently winding a length of braided beard around his right forefinger as he surveyed the desolation. So he's got a beard, so now he's really he's been through it, man. Yeah, and when you read that he was, lazily or whatever, unthinkingly twirling the braided beard, come on, who came to mind?
Jesse Ventura?
Of course, yes.
Yeah, he's got a gross evil guy beard that he's, braiding like Ming the Merciless or something.
He's got his rubber bands in his beard, moved to South America, and foment conspiracy theories look going on there. So
yeah, so
I was excited to see
right.
that.
He's it also says the Cataclysm had left its mark on Thorn as much as on the land. He was leaner than he'd been, his body toughened by uncounted miles of wandering across the whole face of the globe. He'd let his hair grow and beard as well, until all that could be seen of his face was a nose, strong cheekbones, and his eyes. So he pretty much, they might as well be going to his remote cabin where he's chopping a pile of wood and saying Willow, that's a name I haven't heard in many years, type of thing.
Yeah. My name is now Thorn the White.
Okay, Thorn, fine, we'll call you that, but we need your help. We also get a fifth hair update. It says, oddly, while the beard had grown in the color of dull silver, his hair had lost none of its youthful hue. If anything, it had grown more autumnal over time, making it a rich auburn, red with mahogany highlights, where before it had been the other way around.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So this is it's a little obsession, I believe, of gotta be of Chris Claremont, because I don't recall hair ever coming up in Star Wars.
And his hair, so the dominant impression was that his hair, though it was the same color, had inverted. So the parts that were one color.
Must be one hell of a cataclysm.
That is slicing it thin, because, your hair moves around a lot. So he's really keeping track of each individual strand.
Yes. And then he just in case you were not sure, he lays it on super thick. They were haunted. Eyes that had seen too much.
Oh my goodness. And so he sort of, he meets out the purpose of him going to sliding down into this bowl and stacking the rocks. Did you pick up on what the purpose of that was?
Absolutely not.
What? Okay. Which, by the way, there's also, here's another, I don't want to say, we maybe overuse the word Kleinian. I don't know. But he says, he stood, walked away from the scar for a couple or three steps before coming to the end. Look, it's up to you, man. You're in control here. Which was it? Why are you confused about this?
And we all understand that a couple means a few. It rarely exactly means two, but it's we also note that two or three is a fine way to describe that.
Yeah.
Speaking of Kleinian, I teased this earlier. It's continuing to describe the main character, who we all know what he is. He's the one guy we all know who he looks like because he was the star of the movie. But it says, he donned well-worn buckskin gloves to protect his long, sensitive hands. and toss the rope over the edge. So, yeah, I think this is the fourth character that we have had either long fingers or long hands in the, we've only read 10 books here, so that's a weird hit rate.
Is that something that means something else? Is like some weird meta commentary that we're not aware of? Or is it a reference to something that we're just missing?
I don't know. No one has...
Give a character long hands and, X, Y, and Z follows or something?
I don't know, but it baffles, and especially since the one thing we know about Willow is that he's a little person, so we would assume that his hands would follow suit with that, but I guess they're long and sensitive.
Here's I'll just read a few sentences of it. This whole paragraph, though, is one where as I read it, I was certain that what the writers and creators wanted you to do was, in your mind, insert a little Soto like a hobbit after every phrase, just reminding yourself, he bared his teeth like a hobbit. Newlands were built small, so went the tales of creation told by all the slave Newlands, because the great givers passed them by, their attention always caught by those of more significance. It's kind of like a hobbit. The Newland purpose in the scheme of things was to provide amusement to those more blessed. But Newland spirits and Newland hearts and Newland minds bore little relations to the bodies that housed them, with every hand against them in a world shaped for creatures many times their size, and on and on. So, hobbit, 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 right. Hobbit, flashing sign. think, hobbit, hobbit.
And I did like that their scheme of things was to provide amusement to those who were more blessed, which so far you're failing, Newland, Hobbit, whatever you are, to really amuse anybody here.
If you said that about the Brownies, certainly no one would believe you.
But yeah,
really, you're trying to amuse me? Okay.
I mean, yeah, sure. If you're irritation, that is, you are doing as good a job as drive time morning zoo DJs.
Yeah.
But yeah, he climbs down and starts stacking rocks.
But this is great. He talks on and on about how hot it is. So the surface of this thing, it turned to glass, I think volcanic glass, I guess, from high heat. And so it was reflecting the heat. At the same time, its dark color absorbed it, giving him a painful insight into what it must be to feel like to be on a blazing hot griddle. He moistened his mouth, took the edge off of his growling stomach with a hunk of biscuit. His eyes were narrowed to slits. The glare beat right through his skin and set the underside of his skull to throbbing. Next time he vowed with asperity, he'd remember his damn hat. Hats. That well-known defense against being burnt alive on a griddle.
Right. As you're lowering a sacrifice into a volcano, that's their one regret, is that they weren't wearing their Winem Dinem 69 trucker hat.
So he goes into a trance or something?
Yeah, he's sort of like picking up rocks that he feels like are significant. He almost eats one of the rocks with that hunk of biscuit. But he spits it out and then starts piling them up into some sort of recreation of what the mountain would have looked like. Mm-hmm. Again, I've read this twice. You have read it. We're both consider ourselves to be non-idiots. But what he's going for here was very hard, because it didn't even have a like a hobbit. It didn't even have like a an analogy that you could steal from it to tell us what we're supposed to be thinking.
I don't know if he's making a cairn, as they are called, just any pile of stones. Is that something that we're supposed to be thinking of some other book? So that's a possibility, that it's just a reference to some other bit of fantasy that I'm not seeing or would not know. But
I
don't know.
This was also very puzzling, because it says there was a strange duality of perception akin to what he felt when his insight, camel-cased insight, merged his consciousness with the eagles to allow him to see the world through their eyes. I don't know if this is if Mage Sight underwent the same rebranding as Willow did to become Thorn and is now Insight, or if it merged with a company called In Design or something. So then it's now
Connor, not all Mage Sight is Insight, but all Insight is Mage Sight. There's probably some component like that. But
so that's going to be confusing. I'm not sure if we get any more Mage Sights, but Insight keeps popping up in this last section.
Here's another example of what I pointed out earlier. One foot skidded out from under him, stretching him full length, hard enough to keep him lying there a good long minute while he recovered his wits. I mean, this is a theme in bad books, I guess, that time is just not what it is. It's always changed.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess a minute could be as interpreted as a couple steps, but
right.
But
I mean, I guess we understand that laying there for a minute seems like a long time or whatever. But I don't know. It's just a theme that comes in all of these books.
I bet as he slipped on that slippery stone, he probably was like, "Damn it! I wish I had worn my hat."
Right. And then the heat gets to him, and then there's a very puzzling thing where he has some sort of a mind. I mean, it just seems like he's going psychotic or something. Yeah. His flesh is not his own flesh, and
he spits blood into the cairn.
Yeah,
and then the earth bubbles and boils beneath it as being eaten away by some ferocious acid. But I don't know whether it's like a vision quest or what's going on. And he seems to have been traveling around to these other places where this cataclysm happened. There were like 12 seats of power. So he's been to a lot of them, and I guess I don't know if this happens everywhere or what's going on, but again, not super clear. And the brownies quickly break him out of the trance by pulling on a respectful handful of his nose hair.
Yeah. Well, look, just to prove what we're talking about, here's an example. He turned his head, his body following, moving not as it used to through the articulation of his limbs, but seeming instead to flow. Parts of him would liquefy and recast themselves once more where he chose to come to rest. And if each time he looked a little different, an arm lost here, a leg impossibly stretched and bent, a face increasingly devoid of human features, that didn't matter. His essence remained true. What?
Yeah, he eats the Guatemalan insanity pepper and starts turning into a Picasso or something.
Right. Okay, so I didn't know what to do with that. Hopefully that'll be explained later.
But the way that the book seems to be going is to present you with information, ignore it for a while, and then address it in more detail later on. Like the eagles then come and pull him out of this pit, and like I guess that's sort of been what has been transporting them around this around the realm.
Yes, and amusingly the book that I was reading, the ebook that I was reading, it gets in the middle of that. It just has in uppercase and bracketed. It says missing words. Like, oh man,
redacted.
Am I really going to go and discover what those words are? Or which I did. Yeah. I had to get out my paperback and turn lights on and read that. So.
It was where they edited out the dodecahedron into the mere decahedron, like in Armada.
Yeah, right.
Well, yeah. So then the eagles drop him off, and then he starts talking to the brownies. We get this was good. So earlier they had like they sparred with words as deftly as swords. Well, here it has them. The eagles. He says he was always more comfortable talking to the eagles. They were killers when they had to be, but they lacked the brownies' instinct for the verbal jugular. And then we get an example of that verbal jugular right away. It says, compared to what, may I ask, came Frangine's arch riposte, mocking the manners of courtiers he had seen in their journey. Tried to get your attention, Rule said, in a more pragmatic tone. Called until our voices broke. But did you listen? Did you care? Then in unison, I think not. So yeah, just they're playing the dozens. They've got Yo Mama jokes. It's like a roast delivered by the most cutting roast master you can imagine. They're saying I think not in unison. The verbal jugular.
Oh yeah, Oscar Wilde is just applauding with white gloves on from his grave, like well done.
And it gives so Frangine has been turned into sort of a brownie dandy. In the years since the cataclysm, he's dressing like a veritable peacock, they say, which I was not interested because it had no description of his hair, but we did get one immediately about Rule, so that was nice to hear. He says, there was no ornamentation to him. His hair was far longer than Frangine's, the color of rich polished cherry wood, falling past his backside, swept straight from the face and gathered in a leather sleeve that was anchored at the base of the neck by a leather clip chased with drops of silver that Thorn had made him. I am just baffled at this point in time, and I really hope they continue through the rest of the book because they're once you start looking for them, they're incredibly entertaining.
What are we caring about these brownies that this kind of detail? He turned into a dandy? That came as a surprise to me because what you're picturing is like the road, right?
Yeah.
This ruined world of guys he talks about kicking the dust. You're thinking, road warrior or something. And in the meantime, he's like got a lacy handkerchief and is doing snuff. He's a boulevardier and he's cracking wise and walking down the street, tipping his hat to the ladies.
Ivory handled cane and.
Yeah. How? Why?
Yeah. In the other book, they're pretty much both wearing rags and like burlap sacks, and one wears a mouse head as his hat.
Right. You'd think they would be going that direction more so, right?
It boggles the mind.
Yeah. No, he's become a Beau Brummel to. There's a reference that is in a Billy Joel song.
Really?
You know what a Beau Brummel is?
Yeah, because my mom would reference it, and I would be like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. It's very, very old timey. It was a guy who wore big lacy, essentially wore the Jerry Seinfeld pirate shirts times 100, and was out of fashion until everyone went, yeah, I'd like to look like a Beau Brummel. But we were we were doing bar trivia and we're not playing it, and someone across from us that came up, it's like, you could really be a blank, said Billy Joel, if you just give it half a chance. And the entire bar went, what? I've never known what that meant. And all of us, all four old people went, we whispered over to the people next to us, Beau Brummel. They're like, what? What does that mean? I was like, don't get angry. That's just what it is. But I understood their anger. Like, if you don't know what that means, it's a weird word and everything. But yeah. An actual guy named Beau Brummel.
He was I think they used to call dandies dudes as well. Like there was like the gathering of the dudes was that thing. So I guess Frangine is just your classic dude.
The dude abides.
And then what else? Oh yeah, we get so they talked about him at the beginning of the book, but there's a fellow traveler, a Daikini, who's been following them. I guess, and that's what he's far enough away that they're still like wondering who he is, and he hasn't caught him yet. But I guess Thorn uses his insight to look at him. He reveals a wandering zephyr, a ghost of a breeze, so faint it barely tickled the distant grass, to observe him. So I think he looks at him and gains this, or maybe the brownies have snooped through his pack as well.
Yeah, they're excellent thieves, is what we get a description there. Oh, by the way, just going back to it, I forgot. Rule. Mm-hmm. He's got like tribal tats.
Oh yeah,
too.
That was interesting too. Which that was funny because now the association with those is like a bouncer or a frat bro or something. It's fun to imagine what they meant in 1995.
His two swords were carved from the fangs of a death dog. In among the tribal tattoos that decorated his face and torso were a set of scars left by the battle.
Yeah, it's like Mike Tyson.
So we have a dandy. I don't know what he's doing. Right. Anyway, that amused me.
I guess it's just in the book they were fairly indistinguishable. I mean, the movie they were fairly indistinguishable except for the mouse head, and this is just a way for you to tell them apart now.
Yes, yeah, I guess so. I mean, I wasn't making the distinction in my mind, like as I'm reading it, like, is this Kevin Pollak or the other guy? I don't care.
But speaking of the devil dogs with the teeth, this was I think my favorite part of this section we read, and it unfortunately came with like 2 pages left. So the guy who's been following them has a wounded horse, and I think this is pretty verbatim. She'd taken a nasty wound from which she'd never truly recovered. A glance told Thorn all he needed to know. Death dogs. They carried no poison. Keep that in mind. They carried no poison, but their bites were ferociously septic if they drew your blood. You were sure to sicken from it. All too often, that infection killed. He could smell their poison within her, even though she'd fought it to the point where it now lay dormant. Like, as an author, you're able to make decisions. And so the decision is either that these dogs are poisonous or not. And he has somehow decided to have them not be poison, but they poison you if they bite you and kill you.
When I read that, I was like, well, maybe maybe the zoologists are the jury's still out on it, like the Komodo dragons. Is that right? Is that the big giant lizards? For a while, they're like, no, they don't have any poison. They just have infection in their mouth. And now I think it's a very recent discovery. Like, no, it is a toxin in their saliva. So I don't know. Maybe it's just like he's hedging his bets because he doesn't want to be, wrong. Like he doesn't end up on the wrong side of history about devil dog bites.
Right. But
death dog. Sorry, not devil dog. That is a snack.
Then they go on to say, one of them is the Brownies is saying, to fight a pack of death dogs and not expect them to follow, too stupid to live, if you ask me. A dismissal emphasized by the flick of delicately laced cuffs. So, it must have been Frangine. A dismissal emphasized by the flick of delicately laced cuffs from silk soft doe-skin sleeves. Death dogs, you say? Obvious from the cut of the wounds, Rule said quietly. If not the stench of their poison. I mean, it's I don't know. It's the caliber of a James Wynn movie, just to assert something and then immediately contradict it.
Yeah, we just did. We were rehearsing a movie today where a large evil character dies, and then he just appears in a different scene. Couple scenes later, he's just alive again. So yeah, same deal.
And it was not. That's a pioneered in Space Mutiny, that happening.
Oh right, yeah, he walks right past the dead girl. That's like a big plot point too. That's not a background character. Right.
But something else, I forgot to do this initially, and it's all on me because it was my first firm settle down of the book. It was like 4 pages in, and I don't think it comes across in the ebook, but you have the paperback too. You can look at it. But people who are either listening to at home, or one guy even bought the audio cassettes and is listening to them on a tape player. Every time that someone asks a question in this book, the author, the printing thing has its own question mark rune. It's like an upside down question mark that's backwards. And, I said that the courtesan's costume change was the first time I realized we're in for it, but the unique question mark punctuation was where I really knew that we were doomed.
Oh wow! I did not even notice that reading from the ebook. I didn't. That is.
It looks sort of like Rule's one of his tribal tattoos, actually.
Oh sure, yeah. Huh? That I don't know if that's allowed.
No, it's bad news. It's bad. It's like when you first start reading Game of Thrones and everyone is called Sir Loras, but Sir is written S-E-R, but it means Sir, a knight.
Oh yeah, I thought maybe he would use the Syrah spelling.
Plenty of those too.
Yeah. So we quickly get to the fact that this is another surprising bit when, again, I'm thinking road. I'm thinking after the apocalypse, wandering through ruins, lonely, his face gritted, sand thick on his face and in his beard. He's always writing in a notebook.
Yes.
Making meticulous notes and keeping a diary. And this is in sharp contrast to, I'm reading now, to Thorn himself, who was always scribbling in dog-eared notebook. He taught the Brownies during their travels, this is to write, I assume, only to realize too late that he'd provided them with another means of expression, which they enthusiastically put to a use that was as eloquent as it was outrageous. They had as little respect for property as for person, and many were the walls and reputations that had suffered for it. So they're drawing dongs everywhere and saying, Jimmy sucks this or whatever.
Yeah. Here I sit brokenhearted on a bathroom stall. It's unbelievable.
That's just tossed aside. Like he taught them a brand new language.
Right.
I mean,
a new means of verbal japery and cutting, insults like they have going for the jugular.
Right. And I'm sure they are every bit as potent and sharp as those that are verbal too.
Well, I just like that it says that Thorn was always scribbling in a dog-eared notebook. So he's like one of the one of the comedians you see at like before the open mic, who's very conspicuously sitting at the bar, sort of looking around to see who's seeing that he's writing. In his joke, in his moleskin of jokes, so that's right. Willow everywhere he travels.
When you go to clubs, do people still set down the little recorders in the back for their sets?
A lot of places have the camera running, but people just come out, put their phone down with the time. I'm not sure if they're recording it. Yeah.
We one time a guy came in. I think I had to have been with Frank Conna, for those who will know who that is. And a guy got up. He'd been trying. He was pretty new, and comedians back then, we weren't supportive of anyone else. We were wretched, So we just rip him a new one, and he walks off the stage, walks all the way into the back where we were, and picks the recorder up, which was right next to us, and had never seen it placed there.
Oh, so you were like heckling him in real time to each other.
Oh, yeah. So he was hearing himself, but he was hearing us just over the top of it, just absolutely shredding him. I just, you watch him walk away and go, well, he's going to have an interesting night. I have not made a new friend.
Wow. Oh, man.
That was painful.
Well, yeah, they give some more details about that I was unable to parse. I think one of them was saying that, like, he's explaining who the rider might be. It says, Drumheller, this land has daikini like our own. They ride horses, they herd livestock, they farm crops. Some of them they call Vale folk by different names, but Chirlindria has scattered her groves across this part of the world, same as she did across our own, with so much else in common between us. Why not death dogs? So I think this is the first mention of Chirlindria. I don't know what's going on. She has groves. I guess she has her own army of death dogs, because Bavmorda had death dogs too. I don't know if the people who have death dogs are sort of doing a "Are we the baddies" type of thing, where they're like, death dogs? I mean, like they're pit bull owners who are like, it's not the dogs that are evil, it's the owners.
Yeah, if you don't, if you leave him alone, I mean, he'll leave you alone. The Vale folk. Okay, so they bred a race of warhounds, which eventually became the death dogs.
That seems like a lateral move, really. Warhounds versus it's like, so what do the warhounds do? Oh, killing people.
Yeah, they hunt people down, and they tear them apart limb from limb. They rip their jugglers out.
So they're death dogs.
What? Where are you getting this? Did you hear what I said?
Offensive. I'm sorry. Yes. But yeah, it does make it much more likely to confuse for the. Is that Drake Devil Dogs or Sarah Lee or not Tasty Cake? They're like a poor man's ho-ho, right?
Yes. I think are they a East Coast ho-ho?
Yeah, they might be a Drake one.
Bridget says that when she was in like junior high, a girl she grew up in, a medium-sized town in Minnesota. A girl came from the East Coast, and they all thought she was like, she has to be in a gang or something. She talks so tough. And then she went to a store and ordered. She said, "I want a cherry soda and a devil dog." They're all like, "Oh my God, we're meeting a character out of Greece. This is so exciting."
Yeah, well, I'm looking it up. They are by Drake's. They do have mint cream devil dogs, and they have fudge dipped devil dogs. So I invite people to keep track of how many times I accidentally call them devil dogs, because that's going to happen.
Right. I will mix them up with moon pies, my dad's favorite snack that no one has ever seen.
But yeah, they reveal that the traveler is sworn to the king in Angwin, and that was where we left things. We sort of dropped off mid-sentence, because otherwise it would have been like 40,000 words to read for this one episode.
Yeah, holy cow. So we're stopping in the middle, which really, I mean, as this goes along, it does not matter. Right. I mean,
I didn't look up where this chapter ends, but I think that it was a decent amount to discuss this time, and hopefully we get more clues about where this is going.
I am scrolling down right now, and this chapter does not end for wow. Oh, the amount of scrolling. Man, I wish I could, if you could see my screen right now. Wow. Yeah, it's going to be a long read.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, so far it's not good, but it's not it's not that immediate. The badness doesn't quickly manifest itself in the way that some of the other ones do. It's more of a confusing run-on type of bad.
Yeah, that's the thing that is disappointing is when do we – I guess there was some clarity to – maybe it's just the Bram confusion that is still in my mind and I can't shake it. I don't recall Trucking Through Time being all that confusing, although also physical spaces were not described well. So I don't know, maybe. But that seems to be a theme, as you often are saying to yourself, where are we? Who is this? What is happening? And that's – I guess that is a hallmark of bad writing.
Sure, yeah, I guess so. But Trucking Through Time, for what it had 3 places. And, if Trucking Through Time had been being like, here's a planet and there's 12 realms, and so now the cataclysm is rent, this one is sun, like that would have been much more difficult. As it was like, sure, all right, there's the base, there's the Indian village, and et cetera. Like, it's like we all know what those mean in this context. It's just a Western,
yes.
So.
It was the Gilligan's Island of, they were either at the lagoon, they were in the camp, or yes. What was the? I fear I don't want details to slip away. So just remind me. What was his? Was it Miss Marie?
Oh yes, Miss Marie was the beloved of Chad Ordale.
He was terrified of her at first, of what she was going to do to him, right?
Uh-huh. But
she was really going to give him the business. Okay, Miss Marie.
Then it turned out they had a son together, and he was the one that fell in love with the reincarnated version of Dancing Leaf, I think.
Right. It's just, to me, it's kind of like, it's a vacation where occasionally you have to go, what was that town we went to?
Yes.
That second day when it was super sunny and we went to that little place with the sandwiches. Right. I just want to keep remembering
yes,
those
exactly.
things.
They are my Henry Hoover in terms of how they bring a smile to my face.
Right.
Well, I think we have enough time to do some emails.
We're going to the party. We're going to the game. We're going to the disco. We're going to cruise out, man. We're stealing people's man.
All right, first one is from Theodore. When we sort of touched on this, I touched on it briefly, but he made a bear in the beginning, then he gave it to the princess, and we'll see if that has any bearing on later in the book. It might, because the bear appeared to be magic, but Theodore wrote in, said, he gave us a little dialogue. Book, here's a description of Willow's workshop where he builds things and does magic. Me, all right, we're getting a look at what Willow's abilities are, some insight into how magic works in this setting. This should be interesting. Book, Willow stared at a teddy bear for hours and then went to bed. Me, I guess I'll go back to playing Pokemon Shield. It's shortchanging what happens in the bed, but it is pretty accurate.
It was as though Sir Nathaniel had his way with that scene.
Yes. We got an email from John, and he speculates about why the name change might have occurred. For the duration of this completely original book, and because Control-F, find and replace, has not been invented yet, you shall be known as Thorn Drumheller, a name I just came up with and was definitely not sitting on my shelf when George Lucas came knocking. Huzzah! And he says, come on, this is definitely Claremont shoehorning his already written fantastory into the WillowVerse, right? So,
yeah, that's what I thought too, but because you could replace it so easily, that seems... I'm just hoping for a more interesting and dumber answer than that.
Right. Yeah. Otherwise it is very puzzling because, if you look at the cover, it says an all new saga based on the movie Willow, but it's not, you wouldn't make a Star Wars book without saying Star Wars, the battle for the planet where people are horses, that it wouldn't be one of those type of things. Like Star Wars would be the selling point, and this is Shadow Moon, not like Shadow Moon, Willow story type of thing.
The Death Star shall now be known as the Devil Star.
From here that was sort of what they did in the most recent movie. They were just like, now it's called the Empire's the First Order, and the Death Star is called something else. It was just bigger.
Right.
Third email is from Kelly, a Patreon supporter. She says, speaking of Star Wars, while I couldn't pull together any fan fiction, I do like the fan theory that Willow is set on the forest moon of Endor from Return of the Jedi. I did not look into this theory, but I guess this is a fan theory. Someone connected it to one of the Ewok movies, Battle for Endor. Some fans think the two sorceresses in both films are familiar. I'd have to say that this is the most interesting thing in the book. Maybe the craters that Willow, a.k.a. Thorn, is investigating were created by the exploding Death Star? Upside down question mark? They certainly are enough Star Wars similarities in this novel. So I guess that's something we'll have to look into, or maybe people can write their own theories about it. But Willow is set on Endor, so...
You will not be relying on me for making these connections. Someone else will have to do it.
So a dumb theory, but not as dumb as some of the dumb sentences we're going to encounter.
A sentence begins with a capital letter. A capital letter is a letter that's big. A capital letter is not a small letter. A capital letter is big, big, big. A sentence ends
All right, we got a
with
bunch of these this time, and there was no real runaway winner, so we'll see what people had to say. Mike, not you, submitted, "Damn, but you're a thorny bugger sometimes, Willow." He was impressed about the alternate usage of the word bugger to the insult, but Chris submitted, "There was a keening in the air, a mournful dissonance that might be wind, but he knew better because he felt it from the stone in his hand." And he says, "Ernest Klein once again steps in, this time to tell us that while it might have been the wind, it was, in fact, not." So maybe the stone was just pulling in like a dragon.
Right.
John submits, "When he was tired, he simply stopped and sat." Good to know. Andrew submits, "Though the pig then wasn't acting nearly so pig-headed." He says, "It's a very valid pun, but low-hanging fruit. So low that a pig could get it." Janelle submitted, "Windows for light by day, candle sconces for night." She said, "Using things how they are used. Fantasy." Just
hey, that fantastical element of the muffin tin, you got to give him.
So yeah, in this fantasy world, there is a guy or industrial building where they are stamping out muffin tins. That's someone's job. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, they could be what do they call it? Sand molded cast iron. So I don't know.
That would be even better if he showed up. "Hey, where's the blacksmith?" No. We have a professional sand mold and cast iron station in this. Traveler, you must be weary. Come see it. Another Mike submitted, "Compared to what, may I ask, came Frangine's arch repost, mocking the manners of courtiers he'd seen in their journey." He says, "There's a tendency to use 50-cent words when nickels or none at all will do." Carrie submitted, "An appropriate profanity made it as far as thought, though not to execution, before being derailed by the clash of steel from beyond the nearest corner tower and a level below." So that's a A+ example of that, painting a visual scene we've talked about.
That was one of my contenders, but luckily I have more.
Amanda submitted it was the end of the prologue, which was the quiet broken by an intermittent bird song. "The whole of the dawn as prosaic as normal as could be. He'd learned that while he slept ... the world he'd known it has come to an end." Double ellipses was a nice touch. It's like his own question mark. Jamie submitted, "He tried to stand, but instead flailed uselessly with arms and legs as though he'd forgotten how to use them." She says, "I don't know about you, but when I try to stand after falling, I take the time to flop around on the ground like a child throwing a tantrum in the Walmart toy department." Lucas, not George, but appropriately named, "The swords stayed where they were." This is when I think Sorsha had them at Mad Mardigan's neck. "This is such hilariously unnecessary information, I can't help but imagine writing everything like this. The candle stayed where it was. Willow continued standing up. Mad Mardigan's height did not change. Nobody dropped dead." Although this last sentence might be in bad taste.
I would read that book.
It's sort of what Hop on Pop is, It's just like, this is happening. Right. Pop is Brian, a Patreon supporter. People sometimes put that in, or they send it on Patreon. I know that. Other people I know are. But if you are one, let us know so we can call attention to it. "Do you see what I'm supposed to see in her?" Mad Mardigan asked Willow with an exaggerated roll of the eyes. The repetition of "see" and the dumb attempt at humor made me roll my eyes exaggeratedly as well. Melissa submitted, "But Nelwyn spirits and Nelwyn hearts and Nelwyn minds bore little relation to the bodies that housed them." Christine said, "It still brought him joy, but contentment was a word with an edge that, while it had yet to draw blood, still pressed him deeply enough to make itself felt." She says, What is the edge? I'm not sure that Claremont or Lucas even know." Marie submitted, the animal's shod hooves struck in a leaden cadence, her every step bespeaking a fatigue sunk deep into her bones. So that is, very dumb. And Rob, this is the last one. Careless, said Bastion, one of the eagles, not bothering to hide his disdain as he muscled his limp burden skyward. The disdain reminded me of, it was the third time that the word got used this section. I forgot to read it. Was, it's a night of celebration, woman, Mad Mardigan insisted in asperity.
Asperity again.
What did you have?
Well, from that, there's probably not as much fireworks in these, but and this might even qualify as a settle down. So you decide,
okay.
You be
Sure.
the judge. Each location was a place of power, a crossroads where the ley lines of energy of the physical world intersected with their counterparts in the realms beyond, the domains of fairy, home to the Vale folk. Shut up. What did I just read?
Right. Yep. You got this fantasy magnetic poetry set and just reached in and pulled out a handful.
Yeah, so that's the kind of crap where I'm like, where are we? What's happening? And then you get a sentence like that. You go, all right, that is not helping. Ley lines of energy of the physical world intersecting with counterparts in realms beyond, domains of fairy. Go to hell.
Right, because the dragon's main revelation was that their planet is round. In theory, you would have the dragon be like, oh yeah, there's tons of other ley realms with power and fairy folk, and that would be the revelation. But no, we just sort of get that tossed off in one sentence. My sentence it was pretty much because this is all one sentence I'm about to read, but it was pretty early on.
Okay.
There was a peaceful stillness to water and air that allowed him the full use of his senses, as though every sight and sound and scent stood as an individual in stark and absolute contrast to its background, rather than being mixed together in a cacophonous blend, as was normally the case. Mad Mardigan muttered with asperity.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. That was just that was like on the third page of the book, and I was just like, I'm still reading this one sentence.
Wow. Yeah, that is terrible. I had one. I can't think. I'll try to find it here. Oh, here we go. Find what you were looking for. Did you? Asked. I think this was read before, but it reminded me of, said the robot pimp disdainfully. Asked Frangine with a practiced air of malicious glee. He tacks on those things thinking that he's, fancying things up like his
verbal jugular.
Yeah. But I'm just reading more and getting more irritated. Like, just have the dialogue there with a practiced air of malicious glee.
I'll decide whether it was malicious, gleeful, or practiced. Thank you very much.
Right. Well, wow.
Yeah,
all right.
That? A lot to parse, and we'll have hopefully a lot more next time. I think we should read up until it's the same amount of pages to get to the end of chapter 2, so we can do that for next time. Read through chapter 2.
Yeah, sounds good. I was thinking earlier, by the way, and I just want to tack this on. When you think of people having like Willow be their favorite movie or something, when we were searching about for movies to do as a Riff Tracks live thing, it was just tossed in there. It wasn't a serious consideration, but arachnophobia came up. And it's like one of those, like, who is going to care? Or remember that if somebody goes like, oh, arachnophobia, that's my favorite movie. You'd go like, what the hell?
Right.
Seriously?
Yeah, of the same era, probably same middling box office, but yeah, you just never know when it hits that sweet spot for someone where it's like the movie they have at home and they watched it a dozen times.
Yeah, it's like every bar, no matter how surprising to you, has a regular. Right. Every movie's got a guy who's like, that is my favorite.
Really,
movie.
Really, the islands in this strip mall has a guy who comes in here after work every day. Like,
right? Oh, Harry's here. Yep, every day, 6 hours on that stool in the corner.
Oh. Well, yeah. I mean, so yeah. If Willow was your favorite movie, let us know. If you, I don't know, if the Death Dogs scared you, let us know. Like, I guess we could talk about the movie a bit more if people have theories about it or just have funny stories about it. But we understand where you're coming from if it was something from your childhood, but take another look at it, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, let's be clear. I've only seen this. I saw it twice as an adult. I mean, so in the second time, with a fairly jaundiced eye of, oh, damn it. I was going to have a drink, but instead I have to watch Willow. So, I mean, put that into if it was your favorite movie as a kid, obviously, that's fine. That's a pretty good thing to have it. I'm just saying, me being who I am, having to watch Willow, to just take that into consideration.
Whoever's running that Tumblr we discussed in the last one has a lot more to answer for.
Right. All right. Well, that was fun.
Yes. Should we go out with a little bit of the what was the music? The dulcimer hammer thing?
Oh yeah, I'll find some Timopan. It keeps reminding me of that drug in Arrested Development that they were pimping. You remember that? Timosil, I think it was. This is like Tiampan? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I'll find some Tiampan and let's go out. Otherwise, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Patreon people. And we'll be back with another episode of 372 pages. We'll never get back.